We won't waste your time because we think that this show wasted a bit of our time this season, so all we'll say is we'll go one word at a time and just do that. Disappointing.
Time wasting.
Lackluster.
Bratty.
Evil.
Predictable.
Empty.
Vessel?
God.
A menagod.
Devil.
Lucifer?
Angst.
Reformed.
Child.
Therapy.
I think we just described the whole show, actually.
I think we actually did, you know?
Yeah. That shows how bad this show was for this season, I think.
Yeah.
Honestly, it was just full of nothingness. I feel like they wasted 5 or 6 episodes of this season just doing frivolous things and trying to put forward different social problems which were completely irrelevant and unnecessary to the story they were telling, because the story they were telling was super important. And the fact that they just willy-nilly chucked it to the side, yes, all those things are valid, but is that necessary for this show right now? And other than the bad parenting, none of the others were necessary.
Yeah, I feel like for where the season ended up, the meandering episodes were just a waste of our time and they weren't enjoyable. Like, we had to really power to get through season 6 of Lucifer.
And I didn't think that would be the case because every other season has been good to excellent. And this season was like a 3 out of 10.
And you don't
Genuinely.
You don't want to finish on a 3 out of 10.
It really shows how quickly it just descended into utter shit.
I think it's the predictability. Like, in the Lucifer individual episodes is the way it goes. With like, oh no, the first person we meet turns out to be the bad guy. And oh no, Lucifer's going to project his problems into the way he's doing his police partner work.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yep.
That's what you learn to love. And that's when the predictability is a good thing. But in the actual overall arching season themes and the overall storylines, it's not always been as predictable.
Yeah.
Apart from season 5, where there were certain elements of predictability, but it didn't feel lackluster when you got there. The final episode, beat for beat, we predicted. I'm not even joking. Every single scene we predicted. And some people will say, well, yeah, that's because the previous 9 episodes of the season laid up for it. But we could have guessed this.
From episode 2.
From the end of season 5, and it was like, well, Lucifer's going to be God. And it was like, really?
It was just weak. It was weak. And I think when you look at it, Rory was an unbelievably unlikable brat. Like, that was what it was. It was a child who came up not knowing her dad, single parent family, and all the problems that come with that. And that itself is enough to make this story on. The whole season should have been about that. And maybe you could have made her more likable if you'd focused on that. But by the way they just divvied up the story and gave certain characters more screen time than they needed, you couldn't actually like her as a character.
Yeah, and also the way she was written and the way that the conversations were so stilted between her and Chloe eventually and her and Lucifer, it was like, you know, you're writing this to try and make it seem frustrating.
And empathetic towards her, for you to feel as an audience member.
But in fact, it was just, you're a brat. Are you 18? If you're 18, then you're still a brat. And then it was like, oh no, she's an actual adult.
She's like 50 years old or 60 years old. Then what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, it's like, what is going on and why are you doing this like this? Why have you been written in this way? Because it's really counterintuitive.
Personal responsibility.
Yeah.
That is what this show is all about.
Yeah.
It's about Lucifer finding out what his calling is and understanding that he needs to be held responsible for his actions. That's what the whole story's about.
Actually, it's not just him, it's everybody, you know, with the concept of hell.
Exactly.
And,
Yeah.
And so, like, in regard to Rory, it was like, what on earth is actually going on? It was a shit show, guys.
You know at that point from her, she either thinks her dad is God or the devil. He's either in heaven or in hell, and that's why he's not been there in her life. Either of those options supersede you. I don't know.
Especially when you consider she knows that she's an angel. If she had no idea, then it would have been a more typical my parent wasn't there for me story, which is much more understandable. But she's had angel wings. She manifested them to look like weapons.
A big problem with the show this season was that most of the characters just felt super stale.
Yeah.
Whereas before there was this ingenuity to the way they were written, the way they were portrayed. There was this spice, this extra level of panache. This just felt bland.
It felt very flat.
It did, and I think the characters themselves were not written well. They were actually more unlikable than they've ever been.
Yeah.
You look at Amenadiel, I thought it was very unlikable this season. Chloe as well. Lucifer was like a kind of through line. You kind of saw his progression, so maybe that was okay. Maze was fine, but Chloe, I'll tell you, she was annoying as fuck the whole season.
Yeah.
The best thing about this whole season was Dan. He was the best thing about the season. If he wasn't there, this would have been unwatchable.
Dan honestly saved this season.
Yeah.
I would even say Ella, her storyline, like the way you're putting these characters across and their motivations was just so unenjoyable for the viewer, especially when you consider we've got 5 seasons of past and understanding, and all of that was thrown to the wayside.
I thought they would have done more with Ella, especially after that little moment she had with previous God in season 5. I thought there may have been something extra there with her, and they just didn't really go into it. I think they maybe could have turned her into some type of celestial-esque being, and they didn't go down that route because you don't need to, but I think especially with the way the show ended, that may have been a better way to do it. So yeah, the show was a letdown. That's about all we have to say. Sorry, the season was a letdown to a very good show.
Yeah.
We'll end it there.